identity. Secrets are supposed to prevent unauthorized access, but what happens when we mistakenly expose them? You might think that if it's in a private repository, it can't be that bad. But what happens if an attacker can get access to a user's account or their laptop which has the secrets in code? What happens if you make the repository public, forgetting to clean up secrets from the repository? Attackers rely on these cascading events, which shows why it's critical to protect secrets. A single exposed credential can be exploited in seconds in a public leak and can lead to a comprehensive breach, potentially costing millions and causing significant reputational damage. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as removing the secrets from the repository. The secret must be rotated as it remains in history. In other words, once code containing a secret is pushed, it should be considered leaked. The most successful enterprises take a proactive and reactive approach to managing their exposures. GitHub can help you with both. First, our proactive approach is as easy as a few clicks. Push protection prevents you from accidentally committing secrets to a repository by blocking pushes containing supported secrets. If you believe it's safe to allow the secrets, you have the option to bypass the block. Otherwise, you must remove the secret from the commit before pushing again. And with push protection delegated bypass, you can control who has the authority to review and approve the pushes that contain detected secrets. But what about secrets that already exist in the codebase or have been allowed through push protection? These can be managed with secret scanning alerts. Through our security overview dashboards, we can triage our open alerts. And from here, we can review alert metadata like validity checks, letting us know if a secret is still active. And the alert will let you know if a secret has been leaked publicly on GitHub, even if you don't own the repository, with the public leak tag. Now, with secret protection, you can build upon GitHub's direct partnership with over 150 secret providers. GitHub works directly with these providers behind the scenes to secure their token format, making it simple for secret protection to detect and ensure low false positive rates. This helps you mitigate risks with high levels of accuracy. Secret protection also builds upon GitHub's industry-leading AI expertise with Copilot secret scanning and detecting elusive secrets that don't follow a standard pattern, like passwords. And finally, you can create your own custom patterns in secret protection to identify secrets that are important to you. So why wait? Reduce the risk of secret exposure and put your reactive and proactive strategy in place in seconds with GitHub Secret Protection.
Getting started with GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio Code is easy, and now it's free to get started. Here in Visual Studio Code, press the Copilot icon at the top of the screen and click the Use Copilot for Free button. This will open your web browser where you can sign into GitHub and allow Visual Studio Code to connect to your account. VS Code will now automatically install GitHub Copilot, and that's it. Let's say hello to Copilot. Great. Now I'm ready to start coding with my AI pair programmer by my side. To learn more, visit gh.io/copilot.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining today. Welcome to Open Source Friday. I hope you can hear me. Let's hope I'm not doing what I did last week where I spoke to you for about 5 minutes and no one could hear me. So if someone can give me a quick thumbs up in the chat and let me know that, in fact, you can hear my voice, that would be amazing. Hey, welcome, Shiva. Welcome, everyone who's joining. Thank you for being here today. We're missing Microsoft's anniversary party, but I appreciate you spending the time with me. So I can tell you a little bit about the party, so you'll be fine. It'll be online. Hey, Chris, happy lunchtime to you and to me and the biggest coffee mug in the world. I love this. Did you remember this from the shop? It's a contribution graph. We need to bring this back. This is like the best mug ever. Hey, Lynn, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you if you were here last week and you couldn't hear me. I'm still super embarrassed that I did that, but we figured it out, didn't we? Well, welcome to Open Source Friday. I'm Andrea Griffiths, a Columbia Dev in all places. And today we have a super exciting topic. Before we dive into this topic, y'all, I have to share some news with you because I've been sitting on this piece of news for the past, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks. And it's been so painful to me to not be able to share this with everyone. Last night we had a stream for Copilot and prompt engineering, and we were talking about model context protocol servers, and I was just dying because I couldn't say what now I can say because it's public information. So congrats to this team. They done an amazing job. For all of you who've been playing with these large language models or are incorporating these agentic workflows in the way that you write code, or not even just write code, but do anything. Great news for open source today. GitHub is releasing a new open source official MCP server. Official. The team worked super hard in partnership with Anthropic to rewrite this reference server that they had. I think it was in TypeScript that it was written, because I had my own little thing running and it was super janky, but now it's blazing fast. They rewrote it in Go, and that has improved its usability tremendously. So now you get 100% of all the functionalities that you had. So if you did play with the old server, I think there were like 26 tools. Getting repos, getting issues, opening new issues and repos, just gathering all that information and context from your GitHub account straight into your editor, like we were using it straight into VS Code. And now you have that and a lot more new functionalities like tool descriptions. You have support for code scanning, which is huge, and a new function called get me that is going to improve the way that language, that LLM, answers questions like when you say, show my private repos. So before it would be like, well, who are you? Now with get me, we're going to be in sync. So this is an exciting development for all developers that are working with GitHub tools. And for those of you who have started to use MCPs, you understand how this is the way of the future. I know there's a lot of skepticism out there, and a lot of folks are like, it's just an API wrapper. But listen, anything that makes our job easier, and especially an open source project that's here to be made better by all of you and to allow you to have time to do fun things and not be bogged down with authentication constantly or trying to figure out what's in a private repo versus a public repo, and you're working on both projects. Like for me personally, this is going to be super impactful in the way I work. So I'm super excited for all of you to try it out. I'm going to post a link in the chat so that you can go ahead and swing by the repo. Can you please get it to 100 stars by next week? Because I want to have this team in Open Source Friday. And you know how it is. We have to, even us, we have to stick to our LinkedIn criteria for projects. So let's get it to 100 stars so that I can bring Toby and team and we can talk about this. We are going to be recording an episode to check out next week. So I recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you see that coming out with instructions and a demo on how to use it. But hey, get in there. I mean, one thing that is amazing about Copilot now is that even if you are not a Go developer, you can contribute to this project. Like that's one amazing use case for Copilot. So get in there. If you've been playing around with MCPs, period, with any other kind of agentic tools, like get in there, and let's make this an amazing project. So that was my spiel of great news, because I've been like someone holding a secret that hasn't been able to say it, which has been killing me. Anyways, so today I'm super thrilled to welcome our featured guest, Mark Paulsen. He is the head of TD Bank's Open Source Program Office. And when we published our social announcement about this stream, there were a lot of comments about, here's Wilson saying hello. Hi, Wilson. Nobody wants to talk to you. Let me mute myself for a moment. He doesn't understand. He wants to eat that expensive kibble. He needs to let me work. So when we posted an announcement for this event today, there were a lot of questions about, well, wait, what, banking and open source? That doesn't sound right because it is a highly regulated industry. But friends, I'm here to tell you, open source powers way more than your code vibing applications. It also powers like important structurally, architecturally, things that are moving the world every day, and banking is one of those. And so I am thrilled to bring Mark on stage. Mark, welcome. Thank you for being on Open Source Friday.
Thanks. And you can see me and hear me, right?
This week was my guess that was having
Okay.
the issue. Yes.
Well,
We can
yeah,
see
because I had
hear you.
yeah, because I had everything set up upstairs. I had my nice background and everything. I got a new microphone. I was gonna have my son's like super expensive headset and everything. But then my computer didn't work. I couldn't connect. My son brought the headphones to school. So I'm downstairs. I have these free like Air Canada headphones that they pass out to you when you fly.
You sound great though. Shout out to Air Canada.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least I'm here. I can talk. You can see me. It's just typical how technology works. The best laid plans. You got to be flexible. Things are always going to break, and just got to be agile on your feet for sure.
100%. And I know, listen, I feel this. I know you yesterday afternoon you were doing your own technical test and everything was working perfect.
Yeah.
So this is like, of course, Murphy's Law. But Mark Paulsen, welcome.
Yeah.
You are actually a previous hover. You used to work around these parts, and it's just like an interesting tidbit. Mark, actually, I think you were the one who actually formed or started our enterprise advocacy team at one point.
Yeah. That was me. And one of the other things I tried to do when I was at GitHub, and I have a bunch of blogs that are still out there as well, as I was trying to make governance cool. I don't know if it's worked, but I was doing my job, making sure enterprises, got the love, and even auditors. I mentioned auditors as part of my blogs as well. So yeah, it was a great experience being there.
Listen, this is one of those topics that, yes, it can be a bit dry, but I think you made it cool. I think there's definitely a lot more interest now in talking about these topics. We met actually in person a couple of weeks ago at the Linux Members Summit, and like that was a cool crew. Like it was hyped. I think, listen, we're getting there. Governance and maybe things that developers would rather not think about and just use the code and sit down and be in flow. But when we're using open source, we need to think about these things. So let me share a little bit about yourself, Mark, before we get started, because you have incredible experience. You have worked across banks, retails, the tech sector, always advocating for developers and enterprises. And part of that job has led you to be a leader in a ton of transformational initiatives with companies that are humongous. And so I'm super excited to host you here today because I know you're a great collaborator for the AI community, and you focus on safety, governance, which you just mentioned, transparency, and of course, open source. And now that you're working for TD Bank, leading this open source transformation journey, I can't wait to hear what you've been up to. So let's get started because we have much to discuss. I think there is a lot of people that are surprised that this is even a topic within the context of software for banking.
Yeah, I get that as well. What you've already mentioned, what everyone has to mention in podcasts and meetings about AI. So I think, we don't need to talk about AI anymore because that's always the hot topic. Everyone needs to mention it. Yeah.
It's been said. It's been said before.
It's been said.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing, or why did you join TD Bank? And what I know that there are some organizations that have incorporated, like creating their own OSPO, or actually leaning to paths to contribution for open source for their developers, or even supporting by sponsoring some of the core products that their websites or systems depend on. But tell me a little bit about your experience there, what led you there, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. I was thinking about this week. how do I kind of explain, how I ended up here? And I think a good way to explain it is, I think a lot of what I've been doing over my career with transformations, with my time at GitHub now and in retail, it was kind of preparing me for like this point in time, for this role. And anyone who's worked at a bank, anyone who's worked with banks can always tell you, it's difficult to get stuff done sometimes. And but one of the things that I've learned at a bank, and I've been working in banking for, wow, I think like over 10 years now, is it's good to understand how banks work and kind of the DNA of the bank, and understanding like what's happening in the outside world and technology, and everything else as well. And I got to say, when I saw this role, it was very exciting because there's a lot of things happening, and we talked about it just at the Linux Foundation conference as well. Is regulators have started to take a notice of open source. You hear a lot about RegTech, you hear a lot about trust, and I think there's a good opportunity, and especially being in an OSPO at a bank, and again, I think most Canadians know that TD Bank is based out of Canada, but a lot of Americans don't. And we're actually now the 8th largest bank in all of America. And it's like, so we have a big presence in the States and obviously in Canada as well. And I think we have a great opportunity at this point in time to really contribute to the open source community. And like me, when I saw this role, it's like, wow, like this is a great opportunity to not only make sure that we're consuming and contributing in a very, like secure way, in a very trustworthy way, but what can we provide back to the community as well? So that's what really drove me to this role. And it's very exciting. And so far, I'll be honest with you, I've been here 3 months. And it's been great. Like just all of the energy internally. Again, going to the Linux Foundation, conference in Napa is always fun as well. But it was great talking to people within the community. Very humbling, sitting in a room with like like the people who are like driving open source and the people who are like supporting it. That was a great experience.
Oh, it's wild. It's like a room of everyone,
like superstars. Like it was like,
anyone. Yeah. You're like, trust me, I had a couple of those moments. I'm like, what is she doing here?
I know, it's like this
so
person's
cool.
talking to me. Like they're like they should be like have a statue or something, and they're talking to me.
That's
like,
amazing though.
Yeah, it was great because like what I got out of that is like they're dealing with the same issues that I'm dealing with on a daily basis, and
Exactly.
we're all there working as a community, working together to make things better. So far everything has been like super positive, internally but also externally as well.
I love that. I love that. I love it that this was a result of, obviously, even highly regulated industries as banks are taking note of open source. Of course, operating in those highly regulated environments represent challenges. I love to understand, like you started an OSPO office, right? But how are you like even approaching that challenge to work within the constraints that the industry has? Like, how does that work? I have questions about security, so let's just get into it. You can start from whatever you want because I have many questions.
Yeah. I think, from a strategy standpoint, what I did is I did a lot of listening. I did a lot of learning. And after I did that and found out pain points, that's when I started, actually doing stuff. So some great resources that are out there. So there's a repo from GitHub with, like everything you would ever want to know about an OSPO. There's great stuff from the Linux Foundation, from Finos, from OSI. Capital One has some great, case studies, what went well, what would they have done different. And then I talked to a lot of people internally as well. And one of the things that I found is that there's been people, tackling this stuff for years. And one of the things that I've done in the last 3 months is, whatever conversation, if I'm introducing something new, I always acknowledge all of the great work that was done beforehand and all of the great support that was here before I, got here. And so what I did is I, kind of took all of that. And this may not work for all situations, but I created a video. We had a big conference back in January, and I'm the new person, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna create a video, and so that video became part of the conference that was shared with all of technology here at TD. And what I did is kind of just introduce the OSPO. Like, here is what the OSPO is, and I introduced 4 strategic pillars, I called them. So one was governance, because again, we're a bank, so you got to do governance, you got to do audit compliance. One was, work with your community. The third one was, you need to do things in a sustainable way. And then the last one, which is near and dear to my heart, is have a great developer experience. And what I did in the video is just kind of took all of what I learned externally from other OSPOs and companies and kind of consolidated into something that was consumable for a bank and something that was consumable for TD. And I found that really helpful, because now when I talk to people, the first thing I send them is like, hey, have you looked at this video? And they watch the video and they say, hey, thanks for sharing that before we talk. That really helped, set the stage for things.
That's awesome. For the folks here who might not even know what an OSPO is, let's start there. Can you describe? Please describe how you described it in the video. I love it. We could actually watch it, but I know it's an internal thing.
So what I did is, so I took the, so I have it here. I have my script. So I took GitHub's definition of it, and so what is it here? So a dedicated team or individual responsible for managing a company's open source strategy, policies, and processes. So that's GitHub's official, definition. And the spin that I put on that is it's really about enabling TD specifically to get the most out of open source. And so it's not only consumption, it's also being a good neighbor as well within the open source community. So I kind of started with GitHub's official definition and then added in trying to enable that within a bank.
That was a good strategy. I would think to do anything, developing those champions seemed like crucial. Were people very open to it, skeptical? I wonder, especially because this is a different side of engineering, right? Like when folks are used to working in under such tight constraints, and now you're like, and now we're gonna be open source neighbors.
So it's interesting, and kind of knocking on wood here on my wood table is so far it's been overwhelmingly positive. I can't tell you how many meetings that I've been to where someone from security, someone from risk is saying, Mark, we are so glad you're here. We've been waiting for this role. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, I'm expecting them to say, oh, but you're never going to succeed. And no, they're very happy that this role exists. And they're very happy that there's a team dedicated to actually help with some of the challenges that they've been having. So I got to say, one of the easiest things so far, and again, I'm knocking on wood because I'm sure that may change, is I haven't really had to build many champions. The champions were already there. what I had to do, and I think this is something I've been, just very intentional about, is listening, and making myself available. And that's been a good strategy so far, because once I listen, once I let people kind of talk about their experience, um, then I find out that they're already champions. They were just waiting for this program office to exist, to kind of share, um, you know, share their experience and then share their thoughts.
Amazing.
Mm.
So if folks are here and they're watching this, and maybe they're not in a they don't work for a bank, but they work for XYZ company, whether it's a highly regulated field or not. And they are, because I feel like there is a lot of us that would be the people that are already open source champions, what you just described. But you think that maybe you can bring that to your company. Like, what is a good way for a person to bring that up as a topic of conversation? Or how can you, like, I don't know, like, I feel like find how can those people find their champion to actually make a mark appear in their organization?
Yeah, I think there's a few strategies. I think within a regulated environment, starting off with governance and risk may not be the most exciting area. But one of the things that I've quoted, and I think it's in a Boston, so the Harvard Business Review has an article about open source and about how it supports like 90% of the digital economy. So I started a lot of conversations just reminding people that everything that we're doing and everything that we want to do is leveraging open source, and just kind of open their eyes, open their minds to the fact that it's already there. And then I kind of ease them into some of the potential risk, remind them of some of the, things that have happened in the last few years within open source, where it's like, you need to understand and have a game plan for that. And then kind of ease them also into things like the secure software supply chain work and SBOMs. And, it's interesting because you don't need to convince people to use open source. You need to convince people that they're already using it, and then helping them understand why it's good to have a dedicated group to help you govern, to help you control. And then I start getting into conversations about how it can be used for your developers to contribute back to the community, how they could get coaching and mentoring, and trying to frame out like what is the ROI for this? Like, what are the different stakeholders going to get out of this? And I got to tell you, our security group and risk management group, I think, have given me the most love, because they are solving some very tricky issues. And this is consistent across all the banks. Within the secure software supply chain, there are some tricky issues in there. And generally, the security groups and the risk management groups need some support and need some help. And so, long story short, like start with the governance, start with the security, start with the risk, kind of frame it in a way that it's not overwhelming. You don't want to scare people. And then, shift to some of the community stuff as well. And, I've found that extremely helpful in my conversations so far. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That that point that you share about the percentage of the things that are powered by open source. I happen to be writing an article right now about the Pendoat, and there was I think it was last year, there was a report, the open source software it's like the Linux Foundation census, like that report. It's up to
Yeah.
96, by the way.
96.
96%
Nice. Okay.
of modern applications are powered by open source, which is
Yeah.
wild if you think about it. So it will make complete sense that you will have a dedicated office that is in charge of understanding and setting correct governance in place to protect you, protect your customers, and then using, of course, tools like, I'm sure you were familiar when you were here with GAS and all the security tools. Now there is a ton of open source security materials out there. So that is really, really cool. So what's one of the things, like now you're going on this listening tour and you have your security champions that they were ready and waiting. What other interesting things have you been working on with the office? I know you have a couple of talks coming up, and I just love to know more. I guess now that the listening tour is done and it's time to start making some governance sexy again, like what approach are you taking there, and what are you working on right now?
Governance is cool. I haven't got to governance is sexy. That
we're gonna
may be
get
a little
it,
too
Mark.
much.
We're gonna get it there. Don't worry.
Not me though. I'm not gonna get it there. But yeah, so it's interesting what I did, and like for me, I love writing notes. I love writing stuff down. One of the most interesting things that I've had the opportunity to do, and like this is part of my roadmap work and like what's coming up, is all of the community groups that I've been connected with and that I'm able to work with. So one is the To Do group, and so that's Talk Openly, Develop Openly. So that's a great group, and anyone who currently has an OSPO, I would recommend going to their website because they have a OSPO group membership option. So as long as you're running an OSPO, you can join the group, and they've been awesome. I've connected with a lot of people from there as well, with the Linux Foundation as well. So it's very exciting from a being in an OSPO and engaging with the community, just connecting with them. And then, so at the conference that we were at, they introduced the First Person Project. And that is all about, bringing more trust to the open source community, addressing questions such as personhood, which in the world of AI is becoming more and more difficult. And so long story short with that is I've been looped into that project, and me being 3 months in an OSPO, being looped into a project like that again with the superheroes of the open source world, that has just been super exciting. And I've also been accepted to speak at the Linux Foundation North America conference in Denver. I think that's in June. And again, I'm talking about governance, so I'm going to still try to make governance as cool, and I think that may help as well. And then just two other groups that I've been connected with is so one is the Vector Institute for AI here in Toronto. So that was the organization that Jeffrey Hinton set up when he came to Toronto. I think it's been a few decades, and so I've been working with them a lot on AI governance and safety, and also open source as well. And then the last group, part of a quantum computing working group, and one of the things that I'm helping to bring to the table is, from an open source community standpoint, how can we leverage what's out there with regards to, things like crypto, and then things like, when a quantum computer comes out, like how do you, develop for it? Like what's, like how do we get that in the hands of our developers so they could prepare for that? So long story short, I was going through that list this week, and I'm like, I have one of the funnest and coolest jobs I think that is out there.
Listen.
Because I'm doing all the OSPO stuff, but I'm connected to all these super cool, groups as well. And it's just super humbling, and it makes you super just grateful to be part of this community. So that's been super awesome to be.
That's
to be
amazing.
part
And
of
all of
it.
these subgroups get formed to tackle big problems in open source that are not just affecting like the first person project. It's not about banking or banking regulation. No, it's about securing open source. I was sitting in the keynote when it was announced.
Yeah.
And can you say a little about why this was an initiative that the Linux Foundation wanted to create this think tank and actually invest on? Because I was sat there and I watched the presentation, and I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the failure, or actually it was a success because it could have been worse if it hadn't been for open source. But what the objective of the first person project is?
So it's interesting, and this is we're at the conference. Again, I was thinking like this is the perfect time for a bank like TD to have an OSPO, because one of the first things that was brought up was the regulators, and because the regulators have, I think it's funny, like because like open source has been around obviously for a long time, but they're starting to notice open source. And so I think one of the big drivers was that, and how do you create a bigger sense of trust? And there was talk about a trust registry as well, and being able to understand and trust and making those risk-based choices with regards to open source. So when I was hearing all this stuff, I'm like, well, this is great because this is how a bank thinks. This is how a bank handles risk. And I think the other big driver for it, and I mentioned it a little bit before, was the concept of personhood. And there was an example brought up. I forget which open source project. I don't know if you remember, but it was someone who's been involved for about a year, and they were contributing and they were accepted into that project, but it wasn't a real person. They had an email and then they had a GitHub handle, and that was it. And so it really opened people's eyes. And then you throw in, the world of AI as well. So like being able to, I don't know if, quantifying it is the best way to put it, but like understanding and tracing personhood within the open source community. And again, doing it in the right way that doesn't, expose people's privacy, doesn't put them in bad situations. Like, because you don't want to lose kind of the DNA of open source, but like, how do you do that in a way that leads to more trust? And eventually, how do you do that in a way that regulators are going to give like a thumbs up? It's, so I think those were some of the big drivers, at least that I got out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was social engineering. That was sort of the social engineering, that very elaborate scheme. I mean, years in the making to attempt to basically dismantle and threaten open source utilities. That was the XS utils last year. But it's not the first time that this is happening. It won't be the last. So I'm super interested on that first person project and how that's going to just change the way that aspect of governance work. Because you're right, we're all in the internet, but we could be anywhere.
Yeah, I could be AI right now. You don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the simulation. This is super interesting, and all the offshoots of those different projects. These are things that people can get involved. So if you are a developer and you're interested in helping secure open source, or you're interested in I'm gonna run with this make governance sexy thing, and you're interested on that, then definitely be a part, become join the Linux Foundation, for example. There is a couple of other foundations that are doing incredible work as well. I'll be sure to share some of the links that you share with us. If I am a developer and I'm interested in learning, maybe I'm thinking, you know what, my green pasture is, maybe I want to go work at an OSPO office, or I want to have these conversations internally, and that might lead into I'm the person in charge of this. Like, is there anything that you can recommend for us to learn a little bit more about open source offices, period. Any other kind of thought leadership that you've seen out there that you've used and you think could be great, we can share with our viewers. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I think definitely where I started was the GitHub OSPO repo, so I shared the link for that. But there's also a blog as well. I think that was created a few years ago. So that was kind of my starting point. One other thing that I found super helpful, and I think it should be mandatory for everyone who's starting up or who's in an OSPO, is reading the book Working in Public. So this was a book that came out, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and it was based on a lot of research, working with GitHub, working with other groups as well. And for me, it was very eye-opening because I found out about, I don't want to say the dark side of open source, but like the part of open source that people don't talk a lot about. And so it was very eye-opening to see how much support is needed within the community, and that there are people that are, struggling. And, there are people out there that need help. And so like me, that was, very important. Like, one, because it was humbling, because this is something I didn't know about, but also two, it's one of the drivers that I think a lot of people don't talk enough about within the open source community. Is like, how can we help people more? How can we find out who's struggling, people who want to give up? Like, how can we reach out to them before they do give up? Because if you have maintainers and contributors that give up, the project is, basically dead. So that was very helpful to read that book. I think especially for any sort of banks, anyone in the financial world, the Finos group has like tremendous resources out there. And they have existing projects that I believe anyone, even if you're not officially part of Finos, can get involved with. They have meetings every week. I think every two or 3 weeks, they have a recurring meeting for new OSPOs, and for people that are getting into this work in a bank. They just have a recurring meeting for that, so you can get involved with that. And the other thing that I found super helpful, especially when you get into the world of standards and policies, is that there's examples out there from the Linux Foundation, from Finos. I also found another GitHub repo link. I think there's like 20 example open source standards and policies that anyone can leverage. And so like those are some of the resources that I've found super helpful. But I think the most important thing to do is talk with people internally, find out people's pain points, and then connect with people in the outside community. I am talking to so many amazing people now that I had no idea that they existed 3 months ago.
Awesome.
And I've learned so much. It's been such a blessing, like just getting involved in that community. So I think like you can read, you could do as much research as you want. You can find out what other people have done, but you really got to talk to people inside, talk to people outside.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Mark, that's our amazing tips. I've shared in the chat the name of the book. I actually had the pleasure of working with Nadia back in 2017. She was a hover.
Awesome.
She worked at GitHub. Yeah. She was my colleague in what was our team called? Developers something or another. I mean, 2017 GitHub, it was a lot different. But fantastic human being, has done a lot of research on open source. So you don't have to. You just read the book. Mark, thank you so much. You brought so many incredible resources. I'm pumping them in the chat. Definitely the Finos group is doing incredible work. Maybe more relevant to folks who are in this financial industry. You said that the C word. You say crypto. I don't think we had anyone say the C word in an Open Source Friday. I'm so glad you did.
Oh.
Definitely, that could be an hour-long topic. Hey, if you want to come talk about open source and crypto here, hit me up.
Exactly,
Send me a
yeah.
DM, please.
Yeah.
But this is awesome. Okay, so what's up next? Like, it's so inspiring to hear that in this industry is like moving towards recognizing the need for having offices like yours and continuing to help open source thrive, no matter what industry you're in. I know you're going to be speaking a couple places, so can't wait to see what else comes from TD Bank and some of the other amazing enterprises that are embracing open source in this way. It's going to be very, very exciting the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or
It's
years,
very,
rather.
it's very exciting. And I think, just a few of the things that from a roadmap perspective that I would like to see. It's still a process, but again, I want to see contributions. I don't just want to be a consumer. I want to be a consumer in a safe and secure way, but I want to make contributions. I want to just empower our developers to be able to do that. And one of the other things that I found super helpful, and again, I'm glad it was figured out before, but GitHub and Capital One in the last GitHub universe shared their private mirrors app, and it was designed for contributions from a financial institution to the outside world and doing it in a safe and secure way. So I want, that's something that I want us to be enabled to do, like relatively shortly. The other thing that's super exciting, and this is again long term, but eventually when we start new projects, from the ground up, I want it to be in people's minds and having it as an option of, hey, maybe this is something that we could open source. And, this is something Capital One has done. When I was at CIBC, I was part of a group that, back in 2017, they had an open source microservices project that they shared with the open source community. And so there's a lot of precedent for this, and there's, really no reason not to do it as long as you're doing it in a secure way and legal is happy with it. But I just want that in people's minds that this is a possibility. And it's just going into projects with that mindset. So those are, again, two huge cultural changes that I know is going to take time. But, few months from now, a year from now, I want to be able to, come to talks like this and go to forums and, talk at conferences and talk about, hey, how TD is now an open source good neighbor. And look at these examples. Look at how we're contributing. Look at how we're helping. That's one of my big drivers, what I want to see in the roadmap.
I think you will. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for coming by Open Source Friday. I think I love what you just mentioned about when new projects are started, having it be thought of as open source first, even if not at first. Obviously, you're building this for whatever your business needs, but it's really incredible to have that mindset that this is for the larger good, and that's really going to help projects grow faster. Part of the reason I shared that MCP server earlier today when we started, because I'm like, I want this thing to be awesome and epic. And I think there's a lot of value there for developers beyond our team is incredible and they've done a great job. But now that it's out in the open, I know this project is going to grow. And that's the power of open source. So can't wait to see what that does for this industry and many industries. Yeah. And you'll be back with examples about how X, Y, or Z program went live and you were there and now it's open source. So I'm super excited for that. I see it.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. I want to share a quote from earlier. There was someone who left us a little nugget, and thank you so much, Brittany, for being here. Because see, so Governance is an interesting topic. 100% agree how this strengthens the open source community overall. Everything that's happening internally, when done the right way, will have a great impact externally. I love that. We need to put that on a t-shirt, Brittany. That's 100% correct.
I'm going to repurpose that quote a lot. So yeah.
Please. Hey, listen,
that's a great
screenshot
quote,
for all your talks. This is a great quote.
Yeah. I'm going to start with that one. That's gonna be the quote. Yeah, that's awesome.
100%. 100%. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming by. I've shared the link to the conference you're gonna be at. I've shared your LinkedIn. So, folks, if you are thinking you're wanting to start an OSPO office, like Mark is a good neighbor, shoot him a DM on LinkedIn, and he might have
out. Like anyone, reach out. I don't care where you are in the world. Just reach out. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for coming for Open Source Friday. And thanks all of you who been here watching. So, all right, Mark, I'll let you go for now, but you'll be back. I know you will. Thank you. All right, let's give Mark some sparkles, some lightning bolts, just some hoorays, because it's really powerful when an institution, a business that's typically thought of as maybe not the most, highly regulated industries they need to be security first. And now that we're thinking about, you can do that in open source, and you can do it on the open, and you can be a good neighbor and a good steward for open source sustainability. That's incredible. So amazing to bring examples like that when we're talking to industries and companies, and whatever you work at now, there's probably an opportunity for you to be a steward of open source within, be it your job or not, or maybe you want to be like Mark, and that'll be your green pasture too. So I appreciate all of you being here today. Thank you, George. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Adita, for being here. Thank you for being here and bearing with Wilson the dog barking. It's been great to be here and talk about open source with you today, this Friday. Thank you for all you do and your support of open source. We will see you next week. Next week, we have a technical talk. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to take a look, and so I can at least give you that. And by the way, folks, if you want to come into Open Source Friday, if you have a project that is open source, and either you are a contributor, a maintainer, please swing by our repo. And my colleague, Kadesha, amazing, that lady Deb, we take a look through the issues that are open, and we'll reach out to you. So please go by, and if you want to see your project in Open Source Friday, come by. Next week, we are going to be talking to a project called Octane, and this is very interesting. Oh, it's for the .NET folks. You're gonna love this. So it looks like it's a framework for Blazor and .NET. What? A CMS and application framework. So if you're interested in that, or if you just want to come by and learn about open source projects that are cool, please come by next week. But I'm dropping the link to the repo there. So thank you, Shuha. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your support of open source. And we will see you next week.